It's a Wonderful Life started again on the big screen behind the bar. The beautiful woman's voice poured honey in my ears. Honey and insults. Deeply hurtful insults. You seem like a big loser. I think God might buy you trying to kill yourself. He's a sucker for people offing themselves on Christmas Eve. Excuse me? The attractive woman, out of the league for every barfly present, including the retired and disgraced lawyers, sat at my corner table, and these were her immediate and rapid words. She seemed pretty excited. How'd you like to make $500 tonight? Of course you would. Her manicured fingernails, dark red, slipped deftly into her slightly exposed brassiere and produced the elastic stack of mentioned cash. She dropped it like a microphone after a victorious rap battle, right on the table. The paint-chipped table. The surface was carved with the initials of 3 generations of Lale men, including me. The worst and least accomplished of a long line of bums, draft dodgers, and deadbeats. Cowards and inadequate fathers. At least I wasn't that. I had no children. I had no wife. I had no family left on speaking terms but my mom. My only legacy would be this table at Sports Bar. A hole so dank it didn't bother with an original name. It didn't even play modern sports. There was one ancient TV and the old bartender. I never knew his name, but he knew mine. Who popped in VHS tapes of hockey from the 80s and 90s on repeat. Except on Christmas Eve. Jimmy Stewart mocked us with his desperation. He, George Bailey, the character Stewart played, had a wife, kids, a job, yet he still thought about killing himself on Christmas Eve. Nobody here, none of us unfortunates, had anything on George Bailey. Especially not the courage to walk out into the snowy street and lie down in the path of the next snowplow. Born at the wrong time, said Beth, the aged street worker, still game if you are, watching It's a Wonderful Life with intensity, like she hadn't been here since the morning and seen it a half dozen times. $20 for Beth, for you name it. I think she married the bartender years back. Neither seems to remember. Merry Christmas, Beth, the bartender said. She glared at him and muttered curses into her mostly empty pint. The only reason I noticed their exchange at all came down to lighting. What's darker than dark but not total pitch? It's whatever shadows follow this lady around like an evil pool of fog. We sat in it. I breathed in it. I longed to be at the bar, and in the muted glow of red and green string lights from a more innocent, less energy-efficient era. But the money. She'd picked the right guy. She knew her losers well. I touched the wad to see her reaction, of which there was none. $500, I said. She let me take it into the inside of my suit jacket, the one I always wore with my track pants. Both belonged to my father, and his father before him. The suit jacket belonged to another time, and so it endured. The track pants were never used for anything athletic, so they endured too. You have to kill someone, she said, and her perfect smile rekindled lust in a body too lazy to act on even the most basic tasks. Physical intimacy, even the briefest and baddest kind, had become a fantasy that brought on depression. I'd never found anyone. I never would. No one was coming. Nobody rescued Jimmy Lale. Okay. I drained the last half of my pint, and the old bartender came with another before my empty glass had hit the table. My father drank his days away. My grandfather drowned his nightmares from a war he never attended. Here. This place. This exact table. Why the hell did I choose to sit here every goddamn time? Here you are, Jimmy, the old guy said. I nodded thanks, but kept my eyes on her. Wow, she said. You're a real creep. And a pervert. I burped as my roving eye took in the shape of the impossible woman. No women came into Sports Bar, except Beth. But she was a street worker, and possibly married. so maybe she didn't count. You came to me, I said. And in that dress. Why wear a low cut with such immaculate breasts if not to invite stares? And I kept looking. One can view a great work of art without fondling themselves. I shook my head. Listen, what do you want? You're going to the nearest bridge over water, she said. And you're going to jump. Won't that make it hard to spend my $500? My $500. You only get it if you jump. I think one of us is missing something here, I said. Give the money to someone you love. Pay off what's likely a tremendous bar tab. Do something good with it, to make up for a wasted life of selfish indulgences. The way she tilted her head and smiled made it reasonable. Her smile skipped the usual transitions to a cold and flat-lipped stare. Or keep this up for another year or so. Whatever time you have left. What are you, 50? 33, I said, remembering why I didn't sit at the bar. The mirror behind the liquor scared me. I didn't want to see the sad man there. I didn't want to know how bad I'd gotten. You have until midnight, she said, and the darkness relented because somehow she disappeared in it. The money and a heavy perfume, almost covering an odor like rotten garbage, were all that remained to prove the interaction had occurred. I didn't attribute the smell to her. It had to be me, or any number of other human pieces of humanity in the bar. The truth of the trash didn't come until later at the bridge. Auld Lang Syne, the song everyone slurs through at midnight on New Year's Eve, blared from the big screen. The bartender turned up the volume. George Bailey, black and white and astonished by the amount of people in a room who love him, picks up his daughter, Zuzu. A bell on the tinseled Christmas tree nearby rings for no reason.
Look, Daddy,
Zuzu says.
Teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. That's right,
her dad confirms.
That's right.
The movie ended, and we drunks were captured by the silence, drinking a little faster to save our feelings for the hangover. Beth started bawling. The bartender, maybe her husband, comforted her in the only way he knew, a shot of something dark and potent. Her weeping quieted, her sadness marked only by the slight trembling of her shoulders, as she buried her face into the folds of her wrinkled forearms. I stood up. The legs of the old chair scraped against the painted hardwood. No one looked up. Hey, I said. It's Christmas soon. We ought to be celebrating. I felt the wad of money, but hesitated to pull it out of my coat. Not that the half-dozen other regulars, the strangers I drank with, noticed me. I've got $100. Let's all have a shot. A half-dozen grizzled chins, tired faces, finally bent my way. The bartender clapped once. I mean, I paid for my beers. With the unemployment checks I scammed and the under-the-table money I earned through odd jobs here and there. But some of these guys looked homeless. How did they pay? No matter. We shuffled to the bar. Shots of Crown Royal were poured and we drank them immediately. In unison, without a toast. I handed over $100 and turned to leave. 100 gone from 5. Had I really agreed to that woman's demands? 3 miles. The nearest bridge over water. A waterfall, in fact. Jagged rocks and flat slabs of limestone below. A narrow but deep pool in the middle of all that instant death. A surprisingly strong grip seized my forearm. The sandpaper hand belonged to a mop of greasy gray hair, with a pink-skinned man underneath. I knew your dad, his mustache seemed to say. And he was good, too. All the Lales are good. I felt disgusted. How could he say that? My dad spent his time drinking in sports bar while his wife and son watched TV late into the night, hoping, just this once, he'd come home. He never did. He got drunk and he stayed away. The school bully told me once he'd seen my dad sleeping in a doorway. He, the bully, didn't mock me or beat me up. He patted my shoulder and told me to hang in there. I tried to pull away, but the grip persisted. He drank. We all do. Why? Ask yourself. Your daddy stayed away. Why? The gray mane let go. His shaky index finger scolded me. Ask yourself, Jimmy. Merry Christmas. He turned back to the bar and the drink. Merry Christmas, I said, but I don't think he heard me. Merry Christmas, everyone. I went for the door. No one replied or said goodbye. No one thanked me for the shots. The door to Sports Bar groaned on rusted hinges and clanged shut on a quiet street. I couldn't remember the last white Christmas in Bridal Veil Lake. Global warming had given us green holidays and barbecues into December. Not this year, though. A storm had rolled off the lake a few days back and dropped a heavy blanket. Christmas bulbs within snow, soft green and red and yellow. The picture of my childhood, when I didn't understand the problems that haunted my dad. I still don't get it, but I know he passed them along like a tradition. A gift I opened every day and couldn't see clearly. An empty box except for the darkness it contained. Light trails of white dust slithered over the plow-impacted snowbanks. The sidewalks had been made into corridors. I shivered in my suit jacket. I didn't own a winter coat. Too expensive. Plus, these bouts of weather were brief in the modern age. The temperature would swing wildly above freezing within a day or so. Then the pretty decorations would again be set in mud, litter, and cigarette butts. Each step produced a small but satisfying crunch of powder beneath my sneaker. The southeast part of town had been zoned for factory residential about 100 years ago. The companies had long gone. They left rusting masses on barren tarmac. The vacuum of their absence tore at once thriving neighborhoods. Whole blocks were abandoned. Kentland Road, my street, had survived because of the buses to Tour Hill. Bridal Veil Lake adapted after the factories shuttered. Arcades and aquariums, wax museums and slots provided precarious employment, enough money to sustain an anorexic existence. I tried to focus on the lights, the very picturesque street. These houses were old, red bricks and more than the cookie-cutter vaults people called home in the suburbs. Despite it all, I loved this place. And yet, my eyes lingered on every depressing detail I could find. A lost dog poster over 2 years old. The picture faded. The need food cardboard sign in Sharpie by the shuttered mall, left in the dirt near the thriving liquor store. A discarded novel by an author I'd never heard of, the pages swollen with moisture and frozen by the temperature dip of the night. All we do is plead with the universe to acknowledge us, to show us something. But nothing comes. Nothing ever happens. The plea outlasts the beggar. Perhaps that's what it is to be human. Maybe desperation is our purpose, and some creature gets high off the supply. These were not my usual ruminations post-sports bar. At first, I blamed Christmas, and the joy so many people were probably basking in while I staggered home. But then the voice in my head went off script, and in a tone objectively alien. Yeah, the world is shit. It's bad. Find a bridge. Find it now. Come on. What do you have to live for, Jimmy? I turned around so fast I lost balance and stumbled sideways into the snowbank. Around the corner of the variety store, a velvet cape disappeared. Her cheap perfume lingered, and so too the stench of scarcely concealed filth. Whatever pitiful amount of courage I had was spent looking around the edge of the store. A homeless man, wrapped in a new red blanket, slept in a doorway. I didn't buy it. Not for a second. It had been her. Her dwindling stink in the frigid air told the truth. "Leave me alone," I said against the wind, an immediate futility sapping the will to remain upright. The homeless man startled and flinched under the warm blanket. His dark eyes glittered. "I'm not your prop," he accused, before rolling over again. "Sorry," I apologized. When I turned to go, I added, "I don't want the money." But I'd already taken it. $100 gone. A little more quickly, a little more sober than preferred, I walked the rest of the way home. Each blast of wind made me wince. I couldn't hear my own steps or if anyone followed. By the time I mounted the crooked stairs of my mom's wilted porch, I was trembling and could barely grasp the handle of the outer screen. My mom never locked the doors. I usually made a show of trying the keys first so I could chastise her while she watched TV and paid me no attention. I resented the pattern. On this Christmas Eve, however, I had never been more grateful. Once inside, I shut and locked the screen and threw the bolt on the inside door. "What's the matter?" Mom said from the living room. My breathing came in short, frantic bursts. "Jimmy?" "It's a Wonderful Life" played across the flat screen, set too high above the fireplace. Not again. Mom had built a rare fire for the occasion. I felt drawn to the flames. Frozen skin stung pleasantly in the heat. George Bailey defended his deceased father.
"You're right when you say my father was no businessman. I know that. But neither you nor anyone else can say anything against his character."
Mom put down her drink and snapped her fingers. "Hey, Jimmy, what's happening? You get mugged?" I turned around slowly. The fire soothed my refrigerated backside. Mom appeared concerned. Small eyes knitted at the brows. Her lips peeled slightly to reveal smoker's teeth. Fear and anger made up this familiar expression. She always worried about me. Tooth and nail, she'd never failed to step up when she thought I got the short end. And why? I'd never done a thing to deserve her love. And I'd done a lot that deserved a booting out the door. She never asked for rent, fed me, knew about sports bar but didn't give me shit about it. She cared about me, more than I could ever care for myself. "Jimmy?" she said, rocking forth from her chair in children's pajamas. Her small frame made it difficult to find adult clothes. The pants and button-up shirt had trains racing around her legs and arms, and a bright light blasting from a tunnel in her torso. "You're freaking me out." I smiled. "Pretty badass pajamas." "I got a job, Ma." Immediate suspicion cinched her eyelids. "A job tonight? What kind of job? With who?" She snatched up her gin. Who could blame her? I'd had plenty of jobs before. Nothing majorly bad. Stolen goods from Walmart needed to be stored until they could be sold online. I kept PlayStations and Xboxes under my bed for a small fee. Got to keep a console, too. I sold it. "No, not like that," I said. Look, I got an advance already." I took out the $400. "Look." She chugged the gin and poured another from the glass decanter on the coffee table. "What's the job, Jimmy?" I don't know." I lied. Poorly. "Uh-huh. Why are you telling me about it this time? What's different?" She snapped her fingers under my nose because I didn't answer fast enough. "It's different," I said. "Because I won't get into trouble. It isn't illegal." "Wait, is it illegal to kill yourself?" "Couldn't be. Nobody to arrest but a corpse. And this money's for you." I held out the crisp bills for her to take. She shook her head and slid back into the recliner. Her gaze went through me to the TV and the movie. "Take it," I said, kneeling down at her feet. "It's for you, for all..." Mom shushed me, raised a hand, about to give me a slap, something she had never done. "Jimmy," she said, "I love you. From the moment you were born and I held you, I will always love you. You made some poor choices and I never blamed you. God knows you weren't dealt the best hand. But this is the first time, the only time. Jimmy, you make me ashamed." I wished she had smacked me. I sat down on the hardwood and looked at the money in my lap. "It's for you. I didn't steal it. I'm going to earn it. I'm going right now. Honest work, Ma. Honest. Please, take the money." "No." She lit a cigarette. "Please, I need you to take it. It's the only good thing I'll do." Tears came unexpectedly. I hadn't cried over anything since the age of 8 when I understood Dad would not be coming home. Mom cupped my cheek. "Jimmy, you don't need to. Give it back." I stood up. She followed. The top of her head reached only below my chin. I dropped the bills on her slippers and went for the door. "Jimmy, don't go." I ignored her. I closed the front door and locked it with my key, already aware that the panic from earlier had come from something unnatural outside. Was the beautiful woman lurking just beyond the peripheries? I think so. But with friends. Many of her monstrous friends. The nearest bridge, Albion Falls, so easily forgotten in the shadow of the town's namesake, could be reached in an hour at walking speed. I had about 50 minutes until midnight. The thousands of eyes I couldn't see but feel from even the smallest pockets of darkness were waiting. If I didn't hold up my end of the bargain, if I wasn't over the railing before midnight, they were here for me. Running to avoid being murdered so that I could kill myself was ridiculous, and maybe ironic. One would expect to avoid murderous creatures of the night to go on living. Not me. Not a Lael man. As I passed from familiar neighborhoods to the relatively strange borders of the abandoned factories, I tripped over a buried train rail and ate shit on a storm drain. Huge clots of snow fell from the sky and stuck to my unshaven face. I checked the time. Only 15 minutes. And far to go. Darker shades of black pushed against the light, constrained but barely by the agreement I had made, probably with the devil. The hot devil. But the smell. Stank is ugly. Slipping across a patch of ice, tripping over buried curbs, I fled the growing masses of still unknown evil. The roadway bridge over Albion Falls discouraged tourists. There were no sidewalks and only a yellow guardrail up to the knees. A fall would likely be fatal. I had played in the gentle creek at the foot of the Albion as a child. It felt like a magical place, where fairies showered and treasures awaited behind the curtain of water. I always checked. Video games train players to look behind waterfalls. The perpetual disappointment of the empty hollow didn't dissuade me from the idea. Nope. I simply believed someone else had gotten there first. That I had lost the race. My childhood ended the second I stopped believing I would be first someday. That I would find the treasure. That there even was a treasure for people like me. No more. Exhausted, out of breath, with a fair stream of snot freezing in my mustache, I entered the pool of illumination offered by the one streetlight on the bridge. 15 minutes to spare. I looked down. Darkness. The world held an abundance of the stuff. In my head, I knew the jagged death below, and the slim hope of the narrow deep somewhere in the middle. As far as I knew, Nobody jumped from the bridge ever. Who knew if the rocks could be avoided? And why would I want that anyway? If I somehow survived, they would be upon me. I dared to look back as the last minutes depleted from this Christmas Eve. On the edges of the humble streetlight's offering gathered hundreds with yellow eyes, trailing fiery streaks like internal fireflies whenever they moved. And move they did, practically vibrating with anticipation. So many of these evil things together produced a fetid heat that burned the snow into rolling streams of fog. A vapor wall came for me, and I did not want to breathe it in. I stepped over the guardrail. Eager creatures or not, I had no reason to stay. Even if Mom didn't keep the $400, my absence would make her rich in savings. The world would be a far better place without Jimmy Lale in it. Pointlessly, as if I could see anything below, I closed my eyes and began to lean forward. That's when I heard the splash. A watery thunk followed by a loud bellowing. "Help! Help!" A collective, nasty little snicker came from the group on the road. I ignored them. "Hello? Is there... Help!" I'm not sure what happened next exactly. Never in my life have I done anything heroic or even helpful that I can recall. Yet I searched for the childhood path down to the bottom of the falls. When found, I didn't hesitate despite a near total inability to see jack shit at all. "Help!" The call for aid grew fainter. A familiar slab of angled limestone said I only had to jump onto its horizontal twin to reach the bottom. I did, but slipped on the icy spray coating the rocks. Straight into the unseen pool, I bumped into the drowning man. He calmed immediately, and I dragged him onto the flat limestone with surprising ease. I'm not strong. He was light. We clung together as we negotiated our way back into the light, shivering uncontrollably. Those creatures were nowhere to be seen, and I half believed that they'd never been there in the first place. The no longer drowning man, now illuminated, turned out to be chubby, red-faced, and balding, a Santa Claus if he'd shaved off his beard. "Are you okay?" he asked me. Me? What? You're not gonna do it, are you? Do what? Jump. Jump? How did you... Wait a second. You jumped? From where? He'd had to have been above me, higher on the bridge to have landed in the pool. There is no structure above the roadway. It's like he fell out of the sky. Where did you come from? He smiled. Heaven, Jimmy. I'm your guardian angel. Before I could say another word, a black streak whipped between us. Her perfume and the subtle rot clotted my nostrils. I wanted to be sick. The beautiful woman had him by the throat, and off the ground. His feet dangled, and he couldn't breathe. "Well done, Jimmy," she said, and the interior of her eyes filled with blood. "Angel is the rarest delicacy for my kind. This is a true gift." "What's happening?" I shook violently. "You can go now," she said. "I doubt you'll want to see this." The sad eyes of the shaven Santa Claus looked shocked at the betrayal. After all, he'd leapt into the water to stop me from jumping. Just like the film. This couldn't be real. I wasn't George Bailey. I can't, I explained to the old man. Despite his impending death, he smiled as if to say, "It's fine, Jimmy. Go on. Go on back to Sports Bar. Your mom. $400. I began to weep. "Please, lady," I said. "Let him go. I'll jump. I'll do whatever. You can have me instead." She snickered and looked simultaneously revolted. "You're quite full of low-grade human blood, thank you. Probably get drunk off you." Fangs escaped her gums. She bared them. A warning. A promise. "Go, before I let them have you." She laughed. The monstrous shades appeared and closed a circle around the light. I could see more than their eyes. They were not beautiful like their master, and they did not hide the foul cloud emanating from their skin and salivating maws. Upright dogs and wolves caked in dried gore would be a fair general description, though there were more unique oddities in the group. Too many to name. Too frightening to write. "You," I said, "can't have him." My voice broke like a prepubescent boy, which she found quite amusing. She tossed the feeble angel across the road. He slid in the layer of snow and bumped into the guardrail on the opposite side. "Jimmy," she said, "if you want to die by my hand, I'll oblige." Black claws stretched and curved and serrated from her fingertips, right before my eyes. That was when the midnight church bell tolled. The waves of sounds dismissing the disruptive wind, as if the creative breath of God had poured forth angrily from his nostrils. Every creature sank low and laid their faces against the snow. Powerful, blinding white light pulsed with the tolling. The beautiful woman finally became uncertain, and quite perturbed as a fiery gladius blade exited from where her black heart should be. The angel, no longer feeble but grown in stature, muscle, and beard, yes, a long, flowing beard, unfurled marvelous golden white wings. "Every time a bell rings, bitch," he said to the dying vampire. The glamour fell. The perfume vanished. She looked a lot like the others, except larger in stature, and with leathery wings under her hairy arms. Her body fell to pieces and twitched. Panicked eyes searched everywhere, and popped out of decaying sockets, rolling away from the rails, an escape attempt. They squashed rotted grapes under my sneakers. I slipped, but a strong hand caught my forearm and brought me back to level. We were alone on the bridge. The snow smelled fresh again. The world clean. Magic had returned to Christmas Eve. He smiled. The fiery sword evaporated. His wings diminished and faded from this veil of tears. The heavenly glow, the golden armor turned to sparks in the wind, carried away to the sky, where they were indistinguishable from the stars. He kept the beard, though. In this more humble form, he took my hand and shook it. "Thanks, Jimmy." "Thanks. Shouldn't I be? You saved me." He chuckled. "I jumped in the water to save you. You jumped in to stop that creature, proving you're not what you think you are." I wasn't used to praise. I tried to turn away, but his grip, still soft, couldn't be shaken. "What do I think I am?" He only raised his bushy, white eyebrows. "A loser." But now, you see, Jimmy, you proved your worth. Not to me, I always knew, but to yourself. You were prepared to die to try to save me." I thought about it. All that had happened would take serious time to process. Maybe therapy. "Why did you stay away?" he asked. What? Of all the things to say, I just started to feel a little better, too. Bringing up Dad. The nerve of some people. Angels. "Your father drank, Jimmy. He drank a lot. He couldn't stop. He couldn't control himself. And he knew it. So why did he not come home most nights? Think about it." I didn't want to. Dad was an asshole. Grandpa was an asshole. And a drunk like his son and grandson. But Grandpa came home every night. "Oh," I said, understanding finally. "He stayed away. He didn't want to do what had been done to him." My whole face trembled, feeling grief so long buried. I'd hated my dad since childhood. I felt numb when he died. But he was a hero. I sobbed into the angel's chest. Whoa, slow down. Not a hero. Heroes do heroic stuff. Would have been heroic to overcome his drinking and be there for you and his wife. But you said he did his best, Jimmy. Everyone does their best. And it isn't heroism. It's humanity. He finally let go of my hand and backed away. Wait, where are you going? He smiled more deeply, the wrinkles framing sparkling blue eyes. He pointed up. I looked where he pointed. When I looked back down, my guardian angel was gone. I didn't even know his name. What do I do now? Where are you going, Jimmy? His voice whispered in my ear, with emphasis on you. That's the question you should ask yourself from this moment. Never stop asking, son. Until you're there. There? You'll know you're there when you're there. What does that mean? I looked around frantically. I shouted into the cold night air. What does it mean? He called me son. In the movie, Clarence, the angel, is a deceased human who's become an angel, trying to earn his wings through good deeds. Dad? I never got an answer on that. The angel had truly blown this popsicle stand, and I was on my own. I'd like to say I ran through the streets, yelling Merry Christmas at everyone and everything, and that a horde of friends welcomed me into my own home. But I've yet to become George Bailey because he's a hero in his story. And I remain only human. Imperfect, though sober, one day at a time. I apologized to Mom. Gave the $400 to charity. Got a real job at the local grocery store. Work out a lot. Got into martial arts. Took a course on folklore. Because this mild-mannered persona is a cover, of course. For fuck's sake, did you just read this shit? Vampires are real. And angels. Probably a whole lot of other evil, too. So now, instead of drinking, I hunt what hunts us. I set up headquarters where I met my first vampire. Merry Christmas, you wonderful old sports bar. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jordan Group Horror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward. And if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you, which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.